Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Code for Tech Solutions. Today in this video we are going to cover a new topic and we are going to create a full stack application with Angular 18 material, Node JS and MariaDB. So these are the prerequisites which we are going to use. We are going to use VS Code for front-end and back-end development. On the front-end side we are going to use Angular version 18.2.3, NPM 10.5.0, Material 18.2.5, and for the backend development we are going to use Node and Node version v20.11.1 we are going to use. And as the database we are going to use MariaDB, and there are some other tools like HeidiSQL, which is a user management, which is a database management tool through which we are going to create a database and table on MariaDB database side. And next, the Postman we are going to use to test our APIs which we are going to implement on the Node.js backend application side. So this is about the overall technology and versions which we are going to use in this application. The best thing is that we are going to use most of the latest versions to create this full stack application. So this is about the prerequisites. These are some steps which we are going to follow to create this full stack application. First we will see the architecture part. Next I will show you the user interface. Next we are going to create a database and table in MariaDB database side. Next we will create our Node.js backend application. We will create a MariaDB database connection and pool in Node.js backend application. Next we will implement the CRUD functionalities, and finally we will test our CRUD APIs using Postman. This is about the backend steps we are going to use and implement. And on the front end side we are going to create a new Angular front end application using command ng-new, and with that we are going to create our Angular standalone application with version 18. Next we are going to create a material table using Angular material library, and as a part of functionality we are going to implement CRUD functionalities as well as filter sorting pagination with the help of Angular material table. Finally we will test our all the functionalities end-to-end through UI browser and verify the result on the backend side in MariaDB database. So this is about all points which we are going to cover in this video. So I will request you to please watch this from start to end because this video is going to be very interesting. So this is an architecture part wherein, like, on the front end side we are going to create our client web application using Angular 18 version, and inside that we are going to use Angular material table through which we are going to create one material table and populate the columns and data, and we are going to implement CRUD APIs, CRUD functionality along with the searching sorting pagination with the help of this Angular material table. So this is about front end side we are going to use, and we are going to use HTTP client provider to give call to our APIs which we are going to write on the backend side. So this is about front-end application client web which we are going to create using Angular 18. On the backend side we are going to create a client -service backend application using Node.js, and in that we are going to use MariaDB module through which we are going to connect to the MariaDB database, and we are going to implement all the CRUD APIs using HTTP client HTTP methods like get, post, put and delete, and we are going to implement and achieve all the CRUD APIs through this client service. And on the database side we are going to create our database and table on the MariaDB side using HeidiSQL user interface, and we will create a table and database for client to store the client related data. So this is about the overall architecture part we are going to cover in this video. So this is my channel. I will request you to please subscribe my channel. With the help of you people I have created number of full stack applications with the combination of React plus Spring Boot and React plus Node.js, and I have also created number of full stack applications with the combination of React, Angular plus Spring Boot and Angular plus Node.js. So these are all videos which are related to the full stack I have successfully uploaded on my channel. So I will request you to please visit my channel and watch the full stack video which you are looking for, and please do not forget to subscribe my channel. So this is about the short introduction of what we are going to achieve in this video. So let us start with our user interface first. So our user interface will look like this one. This is the header part, and these are the mat form fields for name, email and address, and this is the submit and cancel button, and this is the search filter wherein we can enter any text. Accordingly the data will get filtered out. Let's say for Kyra, for Robin, and if you want to search for, let's say, Mumbai, and for Pune, and for Kolhapur, seems good. This filter is searching and filter is working fine. Similar way we have implemented the sorting functionality as well. So this is for ID in descending and ascending, and this is for name in ascending and descending, this is for email, and this is for address, and these are the action buttons like edit and delete. We are also going to cover in this video. Now below this table we can see there is a pagination section. From here you can control the number of atoms per page. Once you click on next page, it will show the next 4 or 5 records based on what number of atoms you have set. So it will keep on showing the next page until we reach the last page. Once we reach the last page, it will disable this next page and last page option because we are on the last page. Similar way, if we click on previous page, it will take us to the previous page, and once we reach on the first page, it will disable this previous page and first page option because we are on the first page. So this is about pagination section and functionality which we are going to implement. Now apart from this, we are also going to implement the CRUD functionalities as well. So these are the mat form fields we are going to use to enter the name. Let us add one entry. So the get mapping, through get mapping we are going to populate this table with the data, and to add client or update client, we are going to use these same mat form fields, and with the submit it will either add the record or update, so depending on what entries are here. Now let's say if you want to edit any, add one new record, let's say we want to add Ratan as a name, and the same email, like we can add the respective Gmail for Ratan. Let us copy some address, and here we can add some new address like 5th sector, we can say 11th, and we can submit. We can go, yes, we can see the record is added successfully with the on click of submit button. Similar way, if you want to edit any record, so we can click on edit, and the respective row will get populated into this mat form fields. Let's say for 10th record, which is for Martin. Now here let us change it. Let's say we are going to change it to Julia, and same for Julia email, and here we can change it like it's a 3rd sector and 7, submit. Now let us check. Yes, we can see it is updated successfully as expected. Now this is for the updation we can achieve with the click of the edit button. Similar way, if you want to delete any record, let's say if you want to delete this 11th record, which is Ria, once we click on OK button, the record will get deleted from the table. So you can see the 11th record is deleted successfully. So this is about all the CRUD functionalities along with the searching, sorting, pagination we are going to achieve in this video. So I will request you to please watch this from start to end. So without any further ado, so let us jump into the coding part now. So let me close this existing instance of VS Code. So this is our workspace. Let us open one VS Code instance, new VS Code instance. Now here, before we create our backend application, first we need to create our database and table on the backend side, on the MariaDB database side. So to create a database and table, we are going to use this tool, which is HeidiSQL. through which we are going to create a table and database on the MariaDB side. So once you open this tool, like once you enter the username and password, it will show you the interface like this one. There is a session. Once you click on session, we have option create new database. Now here we can enter our new database name, like let's say in our case it's a client underscore master, and we can see one database is created successfully. Now we can right click on the database and we can create one new table, like this is the create new table, and here we can name our new table name, it's a client, and this is the add button. Once you click on add button, it will allow to enter the column. So for us, this is for client ID, and we can make it like begin, and here we can right click on the first option, and here you can see create new index. We can make it as a primary, and here is the default option. If you click on this one, it will allow to make it as an auto increment. We can click it to make it auto increment. So we have created first column with name client ID, which is a begin type, and we have made it primary key, and it's auto increment option we have selected. Next column we can use like it's a name, which should be varchar. Yes, fine. Next is the email. We can make it as a varchar. Finally, it's address, which is again varchar, but we can increase some length. Let's say it's 125. Now we can save it. Seems good. We have created successfully created client underscore master as a new database. Inside that we have created client table on the MariaDB side, and these are the column names like client ID, name, email, and address. These are the columns we have created successfully. Now let us focus on our. So right now our table is empty. If you check the data, there is no data because we have just created the empty table and database. Now let us focus on creation of our backend application using Node.js. So let us do that. First we can create one new folder using mkdir command, and here we can create like it's a client related, so we can make give name like client -service. Go to the folder name, application name, and here we can initialize our application using command npm init-y. Now we can see it has created package.json file. Now we can install all the dependency which we require, like we require express, node1, course, body parser, and some MariaDB we need to connect to the MariaDB database. Now we can see all the dependencies are added successfully. Now let us create one new file with name server.js, and we need to mention that server.js it index.js, and here we need to add some start script like this. So we are going to use script name like it's a node1, and this is our server.js file we need to mention, so that it will on our start script it will run this command. Fine. Now inside that this server.js, what all things we are going to use? First is a constant, or we can say imports. It is here. Next thing, like we need to create Node.js server first. Next we need to establish MariaDB connection and pool, and finally we are going to implement CRUD APIs. We can say APIs, and we can create controller for that. So these are all 4 options we are going to achieve to complete our backend application. So let us we can add everything in one file, or we can create separate file for separate purpose. So here what we can do, we can start with our imports, our constant. Like first we require express, next constant we are going to use course, so we can add this course. Next constant we can mention as app. Is express framework we are going to use. Next constant we can use for port, or we can take it from the environment variable, or we can specify some port, like let's say 3007. Next constant is for body parser. Can say require, it's a body parser. That's it. Now we are done with. Now let us create our server. Here we can use like app.use. I'm going to use course. Next, like you can say body parser.json we are going to use. Next thing, like app.use body parser.url encoded, and here we can use extended as a false. And finally we can implement the listen method, which will listen to our port, and here we can callback message on successful listening to the port. We can log the message like server is running fine on port. Like we can mention this port number of ours. This is the port. Now we can save it. Now we can save everything, all the files which we have modified. Now let us run our backend application using command npm start. Now let us check how it works. We can see our server is running fine on port 3007, which is as expected. Now we have done with two steps, like we have created constants and created our Node.js backend server. Now let us establish the MariaDB connection, and for this part we can use some separate component, like we can say it's a DB folder. Inside that we can mention one file db.js, inside which we need to add this. Now we can define one MariaDB constant which will use this MariaDB library or module. Next we can define one DB constant, and here we can call MariaDB dot create pool, and here can mention host as a local host, user you can mention root. In my case, if you have any other user or user account you have created, you can use that. Now here password we can mention, and next thing, like database, we need to mention what database. It's a client underscore master, which we have just created. Next thing, we need to mention the port 9. In our case it's a 33308, and connection limit we can mention 10. So if you want to cross check the database and port, let us go to our HeidiSQL. Here this is the client underscore master database. Now to confirm the port, we can go to the connection. This is the port number, you can mention 338. Now we are done with this one. Now we need to export. Do not forget to export this. Exports dot we can use module dot exports. We can use object dot freeze, and here we can mention pool. With this, like, it should not modify this constant anyhow, so it will be as is. Fine. So this is about our we have established our MariaDB connection, and we have created a pool on that successfully. So we are done with that part. Now next thing, like we can implement our controller section. So for this we can again create one new folder with name controller, and inside that we can create one controller file, and we need to implement all. Now here we can define some constant first, like express. Next constant for it's for MariaDB, can say MariaDB. Next we can define constant for DB, and we can access the DB from here, like this is the DB file we have just created. So this MariaDB we do not require. Now we need one more constant like router, express.router we can use. Now we can use this router.get this MariaDB because we have mentioned that into our db.js. Now we no need to mention this again. Now here we have defined one router constant. We can call the get. We can first implement our get mapping here, like on this router we can call the get method, and here we can mention the API endpoint like API /v1 / clients as an endpoint, and here this is the async, and we can say request and response as a callback. So here first we can mention one try block, and inside this we can mention one catch block, and in case of error we are going to throw the error. That's it. And inside this, like we can mention one constant for SQL, and here we can add our query like select star from client. We can define one constant for result, and we can call await and db dot pull dot and here we can call the query. And here we can pass this SQL, and finally we are going to return or we can simply say response dot send, and this result we are going to return. So this is about get mapping. Next thing, in order to avoid like begin serialization issue, we can use this begin.prototype.toJSON, and here we can call one function. We can mention like this, we are going to return this dot toString, so that we should not get begin serialization issue. So this is about get mapping. We are done with. Similar way we can implement the post mapping, and this is the method for post. This is the post mapping, and here we can update the query, like we can say insert into client, and here we can add all the fields which we want to insert, like name, email, and address we want to insert, and for values we can add the placeholder for each. That's it. Next thing here is our we are passing the SQL, and here we need to pass the actual request parameters, like for name, email, and request.body.address. These many things we need to set, and here we can say, like here we can add return statement and response.json, and this result we can save it. So this is about post mapping. Now similar way we can create our put mapping so that it will allow to update our client. So let us do that. We can call the respective method as a put, and here we need to add the client ID as well along with the body. Here we can mention set name as a placeholder, email as a placeholder, and address as a placeholder, and we can add where client ID is equal to, this is the last placeholder. Fine. So we have passed this name, email, and address as an input from the request body. Now we need to capture the ID as well. We can mention. So here we can define one constant for ID, and we can collect the ID from request params dot. This is the client ID, and this ID we need to pass for where clause. So we can add it here. That is the fourth parameter we have passed. Seems good. Now we are done. So this is the update query. Fine. Now we are done with our put mapping. Similar way we can implement our delete mapping, and here we can call the delete method, and client ID we are passing number we need, and here we need to delete from client, and here we can clause the where clause we can mention the client ID, and this body we do not require to pass, only ID is enough. Now we are done with the delete mapping as well. And do not forget to export our module like router. Okay, fine. So we are done with all the CRUD functionality implementation part on the Node.js side. Now let us test our functionality. So before we do that, we need to add some few lines of code in our server.js. We need to make use of controller, and here and next thing, like here our app should use for every path we are going to route it to the controller. That's it, and we can save it. Now let us check if we have mentioned the pool. Okay, fine. Inside controller again, okay, this should be pool. Now we can save it. Seems good. Now here this is the constant we have mentioned, fine. Now it seems good. Now let us test our APIs. So we can call first get method and check, and here this is the JSON we can select, and we can go to controller, and this path we can copy, and what is our port name, which is 3007. Now here we can use 3007 as a port, and this address we can paste it. Now let us try by sending it. Okay, so let us restart our application using command npm start and check. We can save it first. This is something we have not saved. Now we have saved it. Now let us check. This is the get method, and we can copy the address API v1 clients 3007. Connection timeout we can mention. We can cross check the port number once again. It's a 3007. Our application is running on. Okay, so let us check. So there is a host name which is missing, like it was incorrect. L was missing, so it's a local host. Now let us check by calling. Seems good. It is showing the empty record, which is as expected because on the database side we do not have any data as such. Now let us do one thing. Let us add some entries. Let me copy few records. So we can try with our post mapping. This is our post method. This is the JSON, and here we can copy the URL as is. Now here we can add one record, first record for this post. We should add this client to the database successfully. Let us check. So we can see one row is affected. Now if we call the get mapping again, it is showing the first record which we have just added. Same in the data, we can check. Seems good. Now let us add two more records. This is for Kevin and this is for Sujata. So we have three records now. Sorry, this is not. This is the get method for ours. We have three records. Seems good. Now here, if we cross check into the database, we have three records. Our post is working fine. Now let us try with our patch mapping. And for patch mapping, put mapping. So for put mapping, we can use our put HTTP method, and here we can mention this URL. And for put mapping, we need to add the ID as well, along with our. So this is the get mapping, and here we can copy this record along with our modified data. So we need to modify it. Instead of Sujata, we can say, let's say, add Kiran, and here we can add the Gmail ID for Kiran. Sector we can change to 9, and here sector 5. We can submit. Now we can see one row is affected. If we call the get mapping, here the third record is updated successfully. Similar way, we can cross check into the database by refreshing this one. We can see third record is updated successfully. Now we can try with our last with the delete. Like this is the delete HTTP method we can use, and to delete the record, we just need to pass the ID. That is enough. We can see one record is deleted. We can cross check by calling the get mapping. We can see we have only two records because third record we have just deleted. We can cross check on the database side as well. We have only two records because third record we have just deleted. That's it about CRUD functionality implementation on the Node.js backend application side, and we have tested all these CRUD functionalities using Postman successfully. So with this, we are done with our backend application part. We have completed the Node.js application creation. Now let us focus on our front-end creation. So let us create one new terminal. We are going to use the same editor. Here we can use command like ng new, and we can give our application name like it's a client -web. We can create. We can use this CSS option. Server side rendering, we can say no, and it has started installing the packages. We can wait till it completes. So it has completed successfully. Now let us go to our project folder, which is a client web. We can run our application using command -o. It will launch our application into the browser. We can type Y for this option. We can see our application is running fine. Now seems good. Now before we go ahead, let me show you what all versions we are using, like XNG version. Angular CLI we are going to use 18.2.5, Node version 20.11.1, and let me show you NPM version as well, which is 10.5.0. Fine. Now next thing, like what we can do, our front-end application is running on port 4200, whereas our backend application is running on port 3007. So in order to make a communication in between these two, we need to create a proxy. We can create one file inside this src with name proxy config. It should be config.json, and we can add the endpoint, like for all API URLs we should target URL. We can copy from our URL, like this should be the target URL. We can copy, and we can say secure as a false for now. That's it. If you have any other host than localhost, you can use it, like change origin, and here you can mention your other host it here. In our case we are using localhost, so we do not need to add it. Now we have added this proxy config.json file. Next thing, inside this Angular JSON we need to go to a serve option, and here we can add, inside options we can add our, let's say, proxy config, and we can mention the path name and file name of our proxy.config.json, so that it will use this proxy config once we run our Angular application, and it will redirect it to the our backend URL, which is we have mentioned for the target. That's it. We can save it. So we are done with our proxy configuration on the Angular side. Next thing, like we can create the required component. So let me open new terminal. Here we can go to our client web, and we can generate one module with name client. Now we can see one module is created with name client. Next thing, we can generate one service inside client module, and we can name our service client itself. So we can see one client service is created. Next thing, like we can create one component, and this is the command. We are going to create the home component inside client module, and it's a standalone. We can see it is created. Finally we can create one interface inside client module, and we can name our interface client itself. So we are done with all the component creation. What all things we have done? First, we have created client module. Inside that we have created client service. Inside this client module we have created home component, and this component has its own CSS, HTML, text file, and TS file. And this component we are going to use to show table, action buttons, and as well as we are going to show the mat form fields for entering the name, email, and address, and we have submit and cancel button. In and all, everything we are going to show on home page. and finally we have created this interface. Now inside this we need to mention what all properties we are going to use, like it's a client ID which is of number, next thing like a name which is like string, email string, and address string. You can save it. Fine. Next thing, now we need to route our request to this home page, so let us do that. Now here this is our route inside which we need to mention this is the path, and we can say client/home, and here we can generate the component, and it's a home component. We can say similar way we can add one more path. We can mention client/client. Can copy this. Now for this path we need to redirect to this path. This is the path URL we need to redirect to, and here we can say path match as a full. And if it is a blank URL, still it need to redirect to home. What we have done, if we have this path kind of URL, it should redirect to the home, and if we have like client only inside URL, again it should redirect to this our path component, and even if we have blank, it should redirect to home. Anyhow, we are going to generate the home component for all these options, and we can save it. Now to generate the home component, we need to remove everything from app.component.ts, and here we can add router outlet option, and we can save it. Now you can see it is generating the home.works, like what is there inside home.html, so it is showing it here. That means our router is working fine. Now let us do implement, or let us design our home page and create our home component. Here let us, here is the container div, and here we can add some style. We can mention some width, let's say pixel. Margin left we can add some 20 pixel, and we can add some margin top as well, let's say 20 pixel. That's it. Now next thing, here let us add one line break, and here we can add one h3 header, and we can make it as a strong, and we can say header name full stack with Angular 18 material, and we are going to use Node JS and MariaDB. You can add some style. First we can save it and check how it looks. Okay, we can, for style we can add some color. This is the color, and text align, let us add it center. Seems good. Fine. So this is the header part. Now after this header, let us add like form fields. So we are going to use mat form fields. So before we use any Angular material mat form field or control, first we need to add our Angular material. So we can use this command ng add @Angular/material. It will add Angular material library into our project. So we can type y to install it, and we can go with the default theme for Angular material for now. This is the Azure blue we can use, and for typography we can use Y, and include and enable animations. Yes. Now we can say it has installed Angular successfully. Now let us go back to our package.json, and here we can see Angular material is installed. Seems good. Now let us go back to our home component here, HTML. Here now we can use mat form field, like this is the mat form field. Now in order to make use that mat form field, we need to import first. This is the module we need to add import for. And we are going to use Angular material form fields. Now let us save it. We can go back at here. Now next thing, like we are going to use input, and this should be like mat input we are going to use. We can add one placeholder like enter a name, and we can save it. Now we need to add import for this as well. Let's say mat input module. Can save it. Okay, so let us rerun our application so that it will show it in a proper way. Now it is showing. Seems good. So we can add some width like 175 pixel. Seems good. So this is for one. Similar way we can add a mat icon, and to use that we need to add import mat icon module, and for this we can use like font icon, and we can say it's a person, and we can save it. Now it is showing it here. It should show like it last after this. Fine, seems good. So we can add this style to form field, not for input, and we can save it. It seems good. So this is for name. Similar way we can add for email and one for address. So this should be like enter email, and here we can say font for email, and this is the address, and we can add address for this one. Now seems good. Now here for email we can add some margin left, let's say 15 pixel, and same way we can add it here. Seems good. After this we need to add one button, and it should be like mat flat button we are going to use. We can use other options like mat raised button or mat stroked button. Right now we are using mat flat button. You can add some margin left, can save it. Now we need to add the button module as well. and we can save it. This is for submit. Similar way we can add for one more button. We can copy it. We can add for cancel. We can save it. Now here we can mention like it's a 10. Seems good. And here we can add some color as a want for cancel button, and we can save it. Now you can see it seems good. Okay, so this is about mat form field for entering name, email and address. So this input boxes we are going to use for addition as well as for addition or updation purpose. Now let us add one more mat form field for search button. We can copy it. Here we can add one line break. After this we can add it here. We can say search client, and here we can add button for search, and we can save it. Now here we can add some length like 125 pixel. That's it, and this margin left is not needed. We can remove it. Sorry, it should be 225. Fine, or 215 we can make. That seems good. Fine. So this is like search filter we are done with. Now we have just added the control. Now let us show the table form, material table we need to show. So to show the mat table, what we can do, like we can search for Angular material table. And here we can see the code. We can copy this table section from here till here, and below this mat form field we can add this. If we want, we can add one line break, or we can keep as is. Now this is showing the error for data source. Now what we can do, first we need to add mat table module as well. Fine, you can save it. It is showing error for data source. Let us copy the data source constant from TS file, and these are the displayed column and data source we need to add in TS file. And here we can say new mat table data source, which is of type client, and we need to add import for this client. That's it, and we can save it. Now it is showing the headers, which is like number, name, weight and symbols. Now these headers we have copied. Now we want our own headers. What we can do, here we can add our own headers like client ID, name, name, email and address, and we can save it. Now here, to show these headers or columns, we need to make the appropriate changes here as well, like client ID, and here we can mention what name we want to display on the screen or browser, like let's say it's a client ID, and here we can use like client ID. This is the name, we can keep as is. This should be email, and here it should appear like this on screen, and this is again email. Finally this is the address, and here for this row, now what we can do, we can save it. Now it is showing our headers as expected, column headers. We are done with our displaying table column headers. Now let us call the get mapping and populate the data inside these headers or column headers. Okay, so let us first implement our get mapping. For that, first we need to do what, like let us define some constant which will hold our data Like first we can define client, which is of type client, and we can mention like id. We can initialize, it should be client id. We can initialize it with 0. Name we can initialize as a blank. Next, email we can initialize as a blank, and finally we have address can initialize. Fine, you can save it. Now this is about client constant. So what about we need to hold multiple client entries like list of client or array of client? We need to hold. So for that we can define one constant and we can initialize it with empty array. That's it. Now we can use this client, this client array we can use inside it here, wherein we are showing all the columns. This is the clients we can use, and this client constant we can use for where we have used this element. Instead of that we can use the client, which is more readable and which makes sense as well. Now here, fine. Okay, now let us implement our get mapping, and for that to use the get mapping, so here is our actual application entry point is a main.ts file from where our application will get bootstrapped, and our this main.ts will use this app config wherein we define all the providers. Like for in our case we are going to use provide http client, so we need to add that provider it here so that we can make use of that. Now let us go to our client service. Here we can mention private some service variable like http client. Fine, we can mention some base URL which is of type string, and we can add some base URL, so we can copy it from our controller. So this is the base URL we can copy and we can edit it here. That's it. So here is a spelling mistake. Fine. Next thing, like what we can do, we can define one method like fetch all, or we can say get all clients we can make, and here this is the method, and this is the observable, and here we can mention client array, it will return. We need to add import for all these. Okay, now here we should return like this .http client, and we can call the get method on this so that it will return all the client list or client array on this. And inside this get method we need to pass our base URL, like this is the base URL, and we can complete it. Fine, so we have implemented one get method inside our service. Now we need to consume it or hold the data which is returning from that in our home.component.ts. Now here it should implement after unit, and here can mention like need to implement this method. So before we implement that method, we need to write one constructor. Inside that we can use our service, which is like client service, Now here we can call this client service dot get all clients method, and here we can subscribe, and here this is the callback data we need to assign to our variable which is clients. This data we can pass and we can save it. Now though we have set this data, it is not showing because on HTML we are showing using the data source. Now here we can copy this line data source, and we need to add our data which we have returned it here to the data source part, and here this is our local variable, this dot data source we can assign to. Fine. Now we can see it is showing the data as expected. Now it is showing 2 records. Let us check into the database how many records we have. We have only 2 records. Seems good. Now it is showing 2 records, which is as expected. That means our get mapping is working fine. Now in order to implement and apply searching, sorting, pagination, we require number of records. So let me add few more records. We can copy few more, and we can use our post mapping so that we can add number of records from here. You can use this option as well as you can use other option, whatever you seems good. So we can see now we have added enough number of records. Now let us see by calling the get mapping. Now fine. So we have 12, 13 records. Now we can cross check into the database first. Fine, we have added this 12 or 13 records. Now it should reflect on the UI. So let us check why it is not reflecting. Seems good, it is reflecting. Now we can apply some minimum CSS to this. Now let us do that. So I have these few lines of code we can copy, and we can add into our styles.css. Can save it. Now it is, you can see it is applied. So what we have done, this is the header color we have applied, like this is the header color for columns, and we have set the row height for each row, table row, and this is like even color. We have set this even color which is like this. Fine. With this we are done with our CSS part. Now let us focus on our actual filter functionality we can implement. We can go back to our home.html, and we can check where exactly we have added the form field for search. Now this is the input for search. Here we can add filter, and here once we input any text, at that time we need to call the like this filter or search client we can call, and here we can pass the client, and we need to implement this method inside our TS file. This is of type client. Here to hold the data which we filter, we need to define one constant as an filtered clients, we can say, we can save it. Now here we can say this dot filtered clients. Now we are going to filter on the original list of clients, and we can call the filter method on. This is like for each atom inside this. You can say atom dot name dot, we can convert either lowercase or uppercase, and we can call includes methods on that, and we can mention like. So here for the HTML we need to pass this filter value, not the client. You can say filter dot value we need to pass. That's it. Whatever entry we enter, that value we need to get into it here, and here it should be input, and we can say it is of type string. Now here we can include input. Okay, so this is for name. We can copy. So here we need to convert it to lowercase so that it should be in sync with this two lowercase. Fine. So this is about name. Similar way we can add for email and for address. Now this is about these filtered clients. Now in order to reflect it on the screen, we need to pass this list to our data source, it here, and here, sorry, we need to pass this inside of this. Fine. Now we can save it. Now let us check if our filter is working as expected. Now let us search for Kevin, seems good. Arnav, fine. Julia, seems good. And let us search for Pune, for Mumbai, and for London, seems good. Everything is working fine. Our filter is working. Now let us do one thing, like we can implement, once we enter some name or email and address it here, that should get once we click on submit button, it should get submitted into the database. That logic we can implement. So before we do that, we need to capture what value we enter for name and all. So for that we can use like can use ng model, and we can say client dot name, and to use this we need to import common module and form modules. Now this is for name. Similar way we need to add for, so this is for email, sorry, this is for email. Similar way we need to add for name and for address. Now we can save it. Now it will capture the values whatever we enter into this one, into this ng model. Now what we can do, we need to submit. Once we click on submit, so whatever we enter the values, that will get captured into our this client values. Okay, fine. Now once we click on submit button, it should submit the data into the database. Now to implement that functionality, we need to right click, and here we are going to use the submit button for add or edit purpose, or add, or we can say update client, and here we are going to pass this client. Now we can copy it because we need to provide implementation for this into our TS file, and this is kind of client. Here we can check, as we are going to use for add and update, if client dot client id is not equal to 0, that means we have some client id. In that case we need to update this, call the update method, or else we need to call our create method. So first we need to implement our create method inside service. Now we can copy this get method, and here we can create client method. We can add, remove this part, we can remove. Here we can call the post method, and it should return only a particular client. And here we need to pass the data, because this data we want to insert into the database. That's it, and we can save it. So we have created one create method. Now let us add this into our, let us implement it or call this method create client method. Now here we can call our respective service, which is a client service. On that we can call this create client method, and we need to pass this client input data which need to be submitted into the database. And here is the subscribe method. For this we are going to, like, it's a next for data callback. We are going to log the message, and we can say, let's say we can say new client is new client created successfully, we can say. And we can call window dot location dot reload, so that we do not need to refresh the page when post our addition. Next thing, in case of error, we are going to log this error. That's it. Now this is about creation logic. Now let us test by adding one entry, new entry, how it works. Now we can refresh it. Now here let's say we can add one entry, like for James, and the email for James we can add @gmail.com, and address we can copy some address. We can make it like 9 sector as a third sector, and okay, we can keep as is and check how it goes. You can see it has added the James address successfully. Fine, as a last record. That means our submit is working fine for addition of a new client, and we can cross check into the database as well how it works. So this is the refresh part. Now James is added successfully. Seems good. Now let us implement our update functionality, and to update our client, first we need to add the edit button, edit action buttons on the table, like edit and delete. So let us do that, because on click of edit, that row will get populated into the form fields, but before that we need the edit button. So we can add edit and delete button to the table. So we can copy this ng container, and first of all we need to go back to our displayed columns constant, and here we can add one for edit column and one for delete column, and we can save it. Now we can go back to our HTML file, home HTML, and here we can add one for edit. Here we can say it's edit, and here we can add one button, and it's edit, and we can add some style, like we can add some height like 27 pixel, and we can make this button as a matte flat button. So this is for edit. Similar way we can call for delete. So this is the delete, and here we can mention this delete label. Fine. And this button name label should be delete. Let us check. Seems good. Now for this delete button we can add some color as you want, and we can save it. Now you can see it seems good. Fine. So we have added this action button like edit and delete. Now let us do one thing. Once we click on edit button, the respective row should get populated to their respective form fields. Now to add that logic, this is the edit button. Now we need to add, like, on click of this we can say populate form fields, and here we can pass this row which is of type client. Now we can copy this. Now we need to define one function for this one, and which is of type, let's say, client. Now we have this local variable as an client. Now we need to populate the entries like client dot client id, and we need to take the entries which we have from our row, like which is client dot client id. So this is for client id. Similar way we can add for name, email, and address. We can save it. Now let us check how it goes or how it works. Like once we click on this row which is of Tom, seems good. Tom is appearing. For Peter is appearing. For Kyra, seems good. Now once we modify this record and click on submit button, it should submit the record into the database. Now for that, first we need to implement our update method inside service. So this is create method. We can copy, and here we can add one more method for update, and we can call the put method so that we can update. And here we need to add like id as well, which is here in our case client id, and we need to add the modified. This is the modified data we are passing, and along with the id. That's it. We can save it. Now we can use this method inside home.ts, home.component.ts. Here we need to call this. Okay, fine. So here is our else block. We can copy, which is for create client. We can copy it and edit it here for updation part, and we can call our respective method which is update. And here we can change the like message like client updated successfully. You can save it. Now let us try by adding updating the record. Let us say this Tom, we can check instead of Tom. Let us add one new entry, like let's say Thomas, Gmail for Thomas, and here we can add sector. Let's say 7th and 7th sector, and we can submit. Seems good. We can see at the place of Tom it has successfully updated Thomas. That means our edit is working fine on click of submit button. With this we have tested our edit functionality as well. Let us check into the database. For the 10th record, it should show the Thomas instead of Tom. Let us refresh this. Seems good. It is reflecting in database side as well. Now let us implement our last functionality, which is like delete. So on click of this delete button, it should delete the record. Now let us go back to our HTML file, and this is our delete. Now here we can call one function on click of delete button, and we can say delete client we can call, and here we can pass this client dot id. Just passing the client id is enough for deleting, so we can pass this id and we can copy it, because we need to provide means implement this method in our ts file. So here we can see here is the id which is of type number, and here first of all we can define one constant like is confirmed, because we want to show some pop-up for confirmation. And here we can say are you sure you want to delete. Now here we can check if it has clicked on OK button on the pop-up for deletion, then only we should go for deletion. So for first we need to implement our delete in service. Here we can copy the update method, and here we can implement the delete method. So this should be delete client, and here we are just passing the id which is enough for deleting any client from the database, which is of type number. Here we can call the respective method as the delete, and here we just need to pass the id which is enough client id, or here in our case this is the id as an input we need to pass. No need to pass the data, as this is delete. Seems good. Now let us go back to our HTML it here. So this is the client id we are passing, which we need to delete. Now here we can call the respective method like this dot client service. We can call on this, we can call this delete client method. We need to pass the id, and we can call the subscribe method. And for subscribe method we have this data. We can say for this dot data, so we can say this dot clients, and we can filter on original client list, like filter we can call for each atom inside this. We can say atom dot client id is not equal to this passed id. In that case we can collect the other list like this. That means we have added the input id, which is this. So we have deleted the input id from the list. That's it. Now here is our new list we have. Now we can call next window dot location dot reload, so that we do not need to refresh the page. That's it. Now let us check how it works. Like we have added everything. Now let us save everything. This is the service method. Now let us check on the UI how it works. Okay, so let me delete this 13 record. Seems good. The record is deleted successfully. Same we can delete this 11th record, which is of Julia. Fine. So delete functionality is working fine as expected. Now we need to implement the sorting logic as well, because searching functionality filter we have used successfully implemented. Now we need to implement sorting and pagination as well. So for that what we can do, let us go for search for the sorting section it here. So this is the table data source. Now we need to go for sorting. Pagination is there, sorting this section. Now let us check how it has defined. Now here we can copy this mat sort at table level. Now where is our table? Start set. So this is the table. Now we need to add this mat sort at table level. Next thing, like we need to add header, mat sort header for all the columns. Like this is the client id we need to add to. This is for name, this is for email, this is for address. We can save it. What next we need to do, like we need to add this variable or constant we need to define as a view child inside this. Now let us do that. Here we can define this. Now we need to add import for all this. Now here we can mention any for now. What next we need to do? We need to apply this sort to our data source, because that will get applicable to the data source set here. Now we have applied it. What next we need to do? Like we need to import the mat sort module so that it will get applicable. Like this is the mat sort module we need to add. Seems good. Now let us check how it works. We can save it. Now here we can see this is in descending order and this is in ascending order for client ID. This is for name, this is for email in ascending, and in descending for address in ascending and descending. Seems good. Everything is working fine as expected. About the sorting functionality we have implemented. Now next thing what we can do, we need to implement the pagination part. So to implement the pagination part, so before we do that, let me tell you what all things we have done for the sorting. So we have added this mat sort first. Next we have added this mat sort header for all the columns, and inside ts file we have defined this view-child for mat sort, and we have applied this mat sort to our data source so that will get applicable to our table. And finally the important is we need to import for mat sort module. We have done fine. So we are done with our mat sort. Now let us implement our pagination part. So we can go for, this is the pagination section. You can check how it has implemented. Now first we can copy this part. This is below table. We need to add in our HTML. Now same way we need to add the mat paginator so that we can make use of this mat paginator module. Fine. Now next thing what we need to do, we need to add one constant for view child similar to our mat sort. Here we can use any for now. Can save it. And we need to apply this mat paginator to our data source so that it will get reflected to the data source and on the page and on the table data. Now let us check how it works. No, it has not applied as of now. So what is missing? Like this is the HTML. We need to save it. Seems good. Now HTML file we saved, and we can see it is pagination is applied to our table data. Now here we can control the number of atoms per page from here. Now let us see, once we click on next page, it will show the next 5 records. Similar way it will keep on showing, and we are on the last page, hence it has disabled the next page and last page option, which is as expected. Now once we click on previous page, it will take us to the previous page. Similar way, once we are on the first page, it will disable the previous page and first page option because we are on the first page. So that's it. We have implemented our pagination successfully. With this we are done with all the functionalities which we have discussed before we start this video. I will request you to please like and subscribe to this video, and even if you want to add any comment, you can add it, and please watch my other videos and do visit my channel as well. Thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much once again.